So we're into day 5 here. I think we've finished 4 days and we're in our 5th day, and we're actually getting to our first waypoint just north of I forget the name of the reefs, but a very large reef system. And then we're gonna turn a little bit more due west. We're pretty mostly due west, anyways. This has been just glorious sailing today. It didn't feel like the winds picked up that much, but they must have picked up enough that it really moved the needle for contango. So to go from averaging 4 knots the whole trip to averaging 5 knots, it's a welcome thing. And we haven't seen a huge increase in the wave heights either. So I think that's pretty cool. This Thursday, May 19th, I think is the day. And so I've been kind of looking at I've been using the Iridium Go to get weather stuff. And also Med Bob kind of confirmed this, but it's hard to say. He was kind of sparse in his forecast. But that I think we're going to have mild weather of force 3 to 5, right? So 10 to 20 knot winds after the beam for the whole trip. So or at least for the foreseeable future, because weather forecasts are not very reliable going out 7 days. So it's looking good. The only unfortunate part is that we've had somebody broke the cockpit shower, and so that created a lot of water leak, and it's still leaking a little bit. And I'm trying to decide whether to just totally turn off the pressure water and we'll use the hand pump exclusively. The only downside with that is that if somebody accidentally uses the normal taps the way that you would use if you had pressure water, that has a tendency to drain the entire system of pressure, and you can't get any water out almost. So I think I might have solved that with the boost pump situation, which the boost pump is like right next to the tank. But I'm not 100% sure about that. And so we have had situations in the past where when the water pressure was not turned on, the crew would drain everything they could into their water bottle, right? And whatever else, the teapot, and just until there was a little dribble, and there's the whole system is not primed. And it was a big hassle to get the water out from that. But I'm not sure that's with the 70 tank. That was when I was using some bladder tanks. They were really tricky to deal with. Plumbing is it's a pain. That's what it is. So, to the extent we have containers, we'll just fill those up. And we already have a 5-gallon container and a 30-gallon container on the deck, which are full of water in addition to the 70-gallon tank. So I'm going to monitor the situation, and then we'll see what we need to do with the water. So that was the only bummer, and otherwise glorious sailing day. Alright, so this is Saturday night. Kind of noisy, you can hear all the wind. And we got kind of big seas, probably 10-foot seas right now, 3 meters at least, but maybe bigger. We got really slammed on Friday night, Saturday morning. So I employed 2 weather routers, none of whom mentioned force 6 to 7 conditions. Now, one did say there'd be squalls, but squalls are not sustained, and it was all night long. And it was not all night long of squalls. It was force 6, 7 conditions, right? So up to 30 knots, right? It was gnarly. We only had a very poorly trimmed stay sail and the third reef up all night, and we're making plenty of good time with that little sail plan. And I thought that was obscenely absurd, and that we would get too slow overnight, that this was definitely a squall that would pass. Did not pass. It just went on all night long. Now, there were moments where it was higher, moments when it was lower, but it was, it was sustained. It was not squall territory. That was what the wind was, right? Today, last night it was kind of beam reaching, and then it moved, the wind moved totally east. We're going almost due west, so we're wing and wing again. The whisker pole for the stay sail broke today. I kind of feel like that was inevitable. It's like this spear thing, and except there's no way to hook on to the stay sail. So when the stay sail jiggles, the spear tip falls out, and so you have to keep on putting it back in. It's a really tiny little thing. It's like smaller than a boat hook. It's a ridiculously tiny pole, but it does have a clip for the mast. It'd be nice if it had a clip for the sail so that it could stay on some way, but it didn't. So I guess we'll look into that, something different. I could repair it, but so what happened was the clip for the mast came off, and then I could just drill that back in, but that's still not going to change the fundamental problem. Is that I had to make an attachment so I could tie it to the sail, and then when the sail was flopping around and it was tied well to the sail, that put too much pressure on the other end of it, and it popped the other end out. So that was what happened, and I don't see that problem kind of going away, even if I do a jury rig of that thing. So right now the stay sail is just sheeted to windward. It's not poled to windward, so it's probably not as efficient as it was, but it's doing okay. I've also had just all kinds of problems with the stay sail trying to get a fair lead. I think if you have this standard you had a cutter rigged island packet 31, which I do not. I have a sloop rigged island packet that never had a cutter rig. That we installed the cutter rig in Tonga in 2018. That rig, I think it has lines led on top of the cabin top, and it's got a whole system that we don't have. Whereas we have the lines kind of leading on the outside of the beam, and it's just really hard to find a spot. So I think what I'm going to do when I get to Australia or wherever is I'm going to probably put a standing block all by itself way up front, kind of where I have the snatch blocks right now, because there's no place where it does not have some problem with the spreaders, depending on the point of sail. And so you need to make sure that it's always totally inside the spreaders, which is going to limit how far you can push it out, but it's not that big anyways. And then in terms of the pole, I don't know. I don't think a lot of stores carry poles. I think you have to order those special. I mean, maybe if they have the equivalent of the West Marine in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is like the superstore somewhere in Australia, I find that, then maybe I'll find a pole. But otherwise, I don't expect to find a useful pole. And that might be okay, but I probably could get a standing block. The other thing was we had kind of low water pressure today, and we had that problem with the shower, the cockpit shower, which was doing a little bit of a leak after we removed the cockpit shower, because the cockpit shower head broke, right? There's a little drip leak, so we're worried that it's gonna leak all into the bilge. Been watching the gauge. I think the gauge is accurate, but we got to like a quarter tank and we really lost a lot of water pressure. But thankfully the problem was that it was crystals in the tank, right? So chlorine and aluminum tanks. So the Island Packet 31 comes with aluminum tanks. Chlorine and aluminum tanks creates crystals, so they settle at the bottom of the tank, and you have to punch them out with a pencil. And that's what I did today, and the water pressure was restored. So that means we're not out of water. That was the real scary thing. I mean, we do have a 30-gallon tank on deck, but that would be a pain to access. And an even bigger pain to access would be the jerry can. I can't imagine pouring water from the jerry can in these types of seas. You know, talk about the spillage. So it's much better if the pressure water works. And we still have a lot of the pressure water. So that was good news. I think we have favorable winds going forward. Supposedly it's supposed to slow down tonight. We might have to motor tonight. But right now it's looking kind of squally, and I'm just worried about squalls, isolated squalls. The conditions, they weren't force 6 and 7 last night. Now I think they're probably more force 4. And we're also getting the extra boost because the seas are so big, we're sliding down the seas, right? So you go your hull speed, unless you're going downhill, and then you're going downhill, you can exceed your hull speed. So you get to the top of the hill at 3 knots, and then you go down the hill at 9 knots or something like that. That's happened sometimes today. It's typically more like 7 knots. All right, so this is day 6. Less than 600 miles to go to Cairns. We're making progress. All right, so about 18 degrees, 23 minutes, and 154 degrees, 8 minutes. You know, we've seen a lot of container ships. I think we're kind of in a shipping lane. We've been over the last several hours. That's probably coming from, the shipping lane's probably coming from Asia. You're going around the east side of PNG, and then dropping down to Australia, it seems like. So maybe Brisbane, Sydney, and whatnot. But in a perpendicular shipping lane, so I think our closer calls are always at night. It's easier during the day. You can make out better what's going on. You don't have to get all the light signatures figured out. And you know, you can always go astern, right? You can always go in circles, especially get your motor on, if you know what direction they're going and where exactly they are. Now the AIS, of course, makes this easier because it gives you their direction.